what we do is we're always making money because we're forced to profit. Are we live?
And we're live.
We're
What
live.
an
We're going to talk about
introduction talking about profiting.
That's right, the profitable stylist. Yes, so Eddie and I have started another video series where we're going to teach people how to do something we're doing to make money, options trading. But we're not going to get into that today so much. We're putting that video series together. Eddie's doing the editing, and it'll be something we'll share with you guys so you can make money, diversify, not only be in the hair business. But today we're going to talk about these perm rods and some other things. You want to do a little intro? Why are we talking about this today?
What's up, Profitable Style?
I know you got to do your
Yeah, right. I love doing that thing. It's so much fun. No, yeah, we're talking about perming. We're talking about straightening, smoothing, all kinds of chemical services. The reason why we're doing that is because some companies, some brands, they don't have a wide selection of colors or textures. And then some other companies that do have a wide selection don't always have a wide selection of colors. Not all the textures are available for all of those colors that they have.
And you guys don't perm anymore.
And then you guys, yeah, and then you guys don't perm no more, right? Nobody's perming anymore. It's not as popular, but perming been coming back for the past 40 years that it went away from.
I know 30 years ago, I was in school to be a hairdresser, and we did at least one perm a day, if not two or three. I mean, we were doing perms every single day. Then I went into a salon and we did them every day. And then Cher parted her hair down the middle and flat ironed it.
And I love her.
and then Madonna did it. And then all the celebrities were going real straight, and everybody went straight. And, 5 or 6 years later, the companies are saying perms and curly hair coming back, and it didn't. Then another 5 years, it's coming back. It's been 20, 25 years now that people are saying perms are coming back. And I would say down south in Louisiana, I have not seen that. But you surprised me on a phone call the other day, and you said you're perming a lot of guys' hair.
So I don't know what the trend is right now going on in Hollywood or New York or wherever it's going on. But I'll tell you, here in Chicago, all we do all day, all week, every weekend, we got some high school kid come in. So a guy, and then the boys are all growing their hair long and shaggy and then permanent. So a lot of guys, a lot of men are getting perms.
Interesting. Can't be all day. Don't be so literal, because then you wouldn't have time to do extensions.
Well, by the time you wrap a perm, it feels like, yeah, right. You do like one perm or two perm a week, and then you feel like, man, that's all I do. That's my whole life now.
So we're going to talk about all of you guys hopefully did at least one perm in school, or how, or you could read the directions. But we're going to talk about where it's really necessary, maybe in doing hair extensions. You have an extension client come in, they have wavier hair than your company provides hair, wavier than your company provides in curl for the hair you want to buy. They don't sell wavy or curly enough hair, and you need to get it curled or permed. A couple of my stylists, you can ship it to them and they'll do it for money. They will perm for $100, $150, $200, depending on how much hair it is. And they're enjoying doing it because it's really easy to do. But we actually shipped out some hair, I think, to your territory recently that we permed. It was 2 wefts on a rack like this. And I was showing a new stylist how to do a perm. And, man, everybody in the shop's watching, because a couple of the girls in the shop said, I haven't done a perm since school 2 or 3 or 4 years ago. And I was kind of surprised that they had not done a perm. It was crazy. How can you not do a perm? But anyway, we tore the box open. The directions are on the inside the box, and I want to go over some of the details about that. But are we ready to jump into it?
Yeah. So perming hair extensions, we're going to be talking about a few things: how to prepare the hair extensions before the perm.
Yes.
What to do to the hair extensions during the perm, and then how to finish rinsing out and the aftercare for the hair extensions after the perm.
So I got really good at perms because I had to do so many way back when. And I had an older lady teaching me and told me a few little tips and tricks. And then some things started kind of coming to me as I was doing them, how to make them stay curl tight longer and the things to look for. And I thought, you know what? When it came to extensions, that's when all those basics came back to my head about how important they were. And then talking to you the other day, I started realizing there are even some other things that are super important. All these chemicals have to get through something. They got to get into the middle of the hair, whatever fancy words you want to use. If companies are using certain coatings to make that hair pretty or shiny or glossy or conditioned or close the cuticle down, you've got to get through that. And there's a few ways you can do it. Sometimes it's just plain old heat. Sometimes it's just washing it better. But when you had mentioned something about silicone coatings or any kind of coatings, and even the color,
the zero stroke 00 clear.
No, the kind of color they put on in extensions as opposed to
the textile dye, which is part of the video that we were talking about last week on how to hair color hair extensions.
Right. So textile dyes were more of a stain than a color the way we color hair in a salon. And I never thought about that. So it probably makes it a little more to penetrate that hair shaft. And just cleaning the hair well with a clarifying shampoo is a good start to get to break through so that you can actually get in there, because perms, it's a little different than staining hair. You're getting in there, and what are you changing? Ion bonds? I don't know. I don't know the chemical names and words, but I bet you do. Don't you?
Of course I do. How do you not know? No. So, because
I just know it goes from this
to that. Is that what happens? Just like that, huh? It's black magic.
And we got to break through something.
Voodoo magic. No.
Voodoo.
A perm, So in essence, what we're doing is you're literally breaking down the bonds of the hair and reforming it into the new shape that you want without getting all scientific about it.
Right. And so we thought we'd talk about straightening also, because a perm doesn't actually curl hair. A perm breaks down the bonds, like you're saying, and then the neutralizer locks it in depending on the position it's in as it's being neutralized. So you can actually straighten hair. And, we do that quite a bit in the salon for hair replacement. We order a hair system that's a little too wavy, and we get a guy that's got real bone straight hair. We'll actually put this hair system in a small little Tupperware, squirt perm solution on it for 1 or 2 minutes, comb it out, and then shampoo it. And there's no neutralizing then, because it's going to air neutralize. We clean it really well. We put the adhesive on, bond it on a man's head, style it in, and then that style is going to air neutralize over the next day or two right there on their head. And it's a lot flatter and smoother. Sometimes it takes the puffiness out of the top. If the hair coming out of there's got too big of a bend, that perm solution will make it change its ion whatever bonds. I don't know what it changes.
Disulfide bond, man.
Say what bond? What is it?
Disulfide bond and the hydrogen bonds.
So the snowflake bonds change real close to the base. You said snowflake bonds? What? So the most important thing is all these little steps. You can't do anything if there's a coating on the hair, like snowflakes. And so if you get through all the hair to the snowflake bonds that Eddie's talking about, how you can't do it dry. Come on, Eddie, get back quick.
You gotta stop. I can't.
The bonds are called. So then we get to the hair is hard. It'd be better if you didn't wet the hair, but the dampness of the hair helps the chemical of the perm or the relaxer. If you're trying to be serious, it makes it spread through the hair more evenly. So you want the hair to be damp to start with, right? And then these little perm papers. What are they for? What are they for? Do you know?
All right, so wrapping paper helps control the hair, so when you start wrapping it around the rod, it keeps everything uniform and in place.
Right. The main thing is at the ends, right? When you put the papers on there, it's hard to get this to wrap around because there are all these different lengths right at the ends, and you're trying to control all of that. Some people will just fold one paper around the hair just to kind of control that before start going around a rod. But the thing about extensions is the hair is so long, if you just take one rod and you wrap it around and roll it, roll it, roll it, roll it, and all the hair is going around that same section, can you imagine how much hair these ends are buried under? So now when you use the waving lotion or the neutralizer or the rinsing, this doesn't get the same processing that near the scalp is going to get in this extension, because it's going to be easy to change.
Hold on, I got a question because I was too busy dying of laughing. The did you talk about the different size rods for and how it compares to hair?
Well, not yet, but
Oh,
I
okay.
did put a few rod sizes on this
Yeah,
rack here,
because here's the other thing about hair extensions is when we wrap a perm on a human, on a normal person, we just choose the size of the rod that we want depending on the size of the curl that they want, and it's pretty straightforward. When it comes to perming hair extensions, though, you have to actually go, what is it, Bernard? Like 1 to 2 rod sizes smaller than what you actually want, because the extensions have been processed and already been pre-straightened out and pre-colored from the manufacturer. So they've already gone through such a heavy chemical processing to begin with. And you got to break through that to reform the size that you want.
I think that that's because most people don't do good perms. I don't think it's necessary. The thing that I do, most curly hair is not uniformly curly, and people don't realize that. So the biggest mistake people make when they perm hair, and this might just cover that indirectly, but the biggest mistake people make is they use the same perm rod on the whole head. They're like, I don't want to go too curly, so they use a big peach or brown rod like this. And I will generally use 2 or 3 different rod sizes to just change up the curl, and it'll all pull together, but it looks a lot more natural. So I think that the reason why some people are doing the rod size smaller is they're not cleaning the hair well before, and they're not leaving the perm solution on the right amount of time, and they're not neutralizing well. If you're doing everything correctly, I don't find you have to change the size of the rod at all.
So then how do you
You
cleanse? How do you prep the hair?
so I still like to use Dawn dishwashing detergent or Shampoo 3 by Paul Mitchell, or any we just happen to have Paul Mitchell there, but we also have a couple of other clarifying shampoos from other companies, and any kind of clarifying shampoo. But then I don't trust a clarifying shampoo just because it says it's a clarifying shampoo. To me, there's nothing takes the place of just good old fashioned scrubbing, and I don't want to put it in knots or tangles. But if you think about when you're cleaning anything, a floor, a dish, a pot, a pan, what is it that breaks through whatever that red sauce that's dried on the pot? It's not necessarily the soap you use, or just a little bit of water or a little bit of scrubbing. It's a little bit of time, and it's a little bit of repetitiveness. If I let that pot soak in water, the hard, crusty stuff starts to get soft. So to me, 2 or 3 shampoos with a clarifying shampoo,
Mm-hmm.
shampoo and rinse, shampoo and rinse, shampoo and rinse. That time and that hair staying wet for a longer period of time starts to soften whatever's hard and dried in the hair. So I like to clarify 3 times. Now, it's not like long, drawn out, extensive shampoos, but that first one might be really quick. I wet the hair and I'll put shampoo and I just squeeze, and start rinsing right
Well,
away
they
on the
used to
first.
tell me all the time that the cleaning and the cleansing is in the suds. And that was
Yeah,
back in the day when surfactants were strongly used, as and universally across the board and everything. But then we started going away from sulfates. We started going sulfate free. So even the clarifying shampoos, the surfactants in those started changing up too, which
a lot
is,
less stuff.
and you and I have been talking about Dawn dish soap. We should get a sponsorship from those guys, because we've been talking about that particular product for 20 years now, I think, something like
At
that.
least. Yes, definitely. And so, it doesn't need to suds up, but in a product that will suds up, it's definitely a good indicator that the hair is clean, because it'll suds less when the hair is dirty. And as
Hmm.
it gets clean, it suds more. You use less product and get more suds. But the main thing, again, is the time. Letting it be wet for a longer period of time, breaking it down. I'm squeezing through. We're going to get a little more soap. We're going to squish it through again, dip it into a bucket or a bowl,
Hmm.
and then rinse and rinse and rinse it again. And then a third time. And on the third time, I'm going to rinse a lot. And I'll even change the temperature of water a couple of times. especially on extensions, because I don't have a client to complain about the hot water being maybe a little too hot. So I can go a little on the warm side, really open up that cuticle layer. So to me, I'm opening cuticle, closing, opening, closing. So I'm getting a little manipulation in just the swelling and contraction of the hair shaft by going from warm to cool on each shampoo. So I'll shampoo the first time with just a little warmer water than usual. Then the second time I'll do it with cold water. Then the third time I'll start with hot water for shampooing and then rinse with cold water or cooler water just to get the hair itself to be moving along with
You need
length.
it soft and pliable so the solution can get in there. So now that you've clarified, now we're ready to start wrapping.
Yes. So now you've got a bunch of different perms, and this is where you got to think about this. You've got just waving lotion and neutralizer, part A, part B, but then you've got pre-wrap solution with some that will help. I do like a pre-wrap solution on extensions because I feel like that's just one more thing that might be softening all those strands. I'll squirt it all just back and forth across there, comb it through, and I think it's going to break down something. It's going to do something. I don't know if it's supposed to mix with. They always say don't mix it with the perm solution, and I don't. But obviously, when it gets on the hair, it's going to mix together.
Right,
So I don't know. I don't know if it's a chemical reaction between those two, or if it just softens the hair before so the perm solution can get in better, or if it equals out porosity. I'm not really sure what it does, but I like it because it does something more. But you know what I like even more is an exothermic perm.
Okay. So an
And
exothermic, not so that's even because those are stronger than resistant formulas.
it's not as much because of the strength, because I don't even necessarily use a perm for previously permed or chemically treated hair. I
Okay.
don't care what perm. I'll just grab any perm. Obvious.
I was about
Not
to
obvious.
ask you, do you like the neutral pH? Do you like the gray hair? Do you like the resistant? You like the exos?
I will use any perm that's available to do it, because to me it's more about the test curl, doing all the processes right. I think all these perms have the same solution in there that are changing. They're with a few differences, and I think that ones that are for it's almost like they're watered down or added conditioners when they're for chemically treated hair. Whereas if I just watched it closer, you still got to get in there and change the same snowflake bonds in the hair. And so if I'm using a perm that's watered down somehow, then I just think it's gonna blow everything down. I'd rather just I'd rather just take the perm out sooner. But all the other things are the things that really, really matter. You got to stay
Do
with
you
them.
have your phone next to you?
Why did you
I'm
text
gonna
me something?
text you how to say it because you ain't understanding what I'm saying and you killing
You
me, man.
said you said snowflake bonds.
It's not the stuff.
Maybe you should put it in the comments below so everybody can pronounce it right. But I know how to spell snowflake. So let's go to the next step. We can do this after the video.
Sending it to you right
We're
now,
live.
man. I can't even keep a straight face. You're killing
We
me.
clean the hair. So listen, you can't spray too much. If you That was too much right there. If you spray too much water, you're watering down your waving solution. So there's another problem. You put these perm papers on the ends, and they don't stick very well if they're dry. So you give it a little mist of water, and you wet the ends. And so now I'm worried. Oh goodness, the end is going to be covered by all that hair. I don't want the ends too wet, too watered down, because they're going to be not. I was going to say neutralized. They're going to be what word would it be? Like
Well,
not as concentrated.
diluted. You're diluting it.
Diluted.
You're diluting it
That's
down
what-
too much, and then the solution's getting diluted. You're losing the strength and the potency of the product.
So I'm worrying about that along the way. But let me talk about why I like an exothermic perm. Hair extensions are not connected to a person's head. And when you do a perm, they always talk about putting a plastic bag, a plastic cap, some sort of. Why? What's the bag for, Eddie?
The processing cap is to help retain the heat to allow even
There's no heat. There's no
processing.
heat. That's the problem with extensions or hair replacement or hair systems or human hair that's not connected to a person's head. That little bit of heat, It's funny because no bags for certain bleaches and colors, even though some people do, and then it's got to breathe and there's no oxidation. I don't understand the chemicals well enough to know, but I do understand that a plastic bag, obviously, it's going to keep it from drying out as fast. I imagine it's going to keep the moisture content in there, but it's going to get hot, whether they're wanting heat or not. The body temperature is going to build up inside this bag on top of the head. So is it something they want? I don't know, but it's definitely going to open cuticle layer, process, make that hair pull more of whatever in. And so to me, an exothermic perm is, for those of you out there that don't know what that is, it's when you mix the part A and part B and then the bottle gets freaking hot. You're like, oh my God,
it gets volcano hot, man. It's cool.
I have a science experiment here in front of me. So this bottle gets really hot. I think that's better because it's simulating body heat. You don't need the body heat as much. And we put that on there. And on this rack, I've got the hair just kind of in the middle right now, but a weft on one end and a weft on the other end. We can actually, when all this hair is wrapped up and it's real small like this, we can put one. We don't use the bag that comes in the box because it doesn't stay closed too well. You could, but one elastic plastic cap that you get in those boxes where they got, like the lunch lady would wear. We pull that over here and it'll wrap to here, and then we can pull one on the other side and do that. And you know what? With all this being said, I was teaching my second to youngest son, I don't know, he's in his mid-20s, how to be a stylist recently, and we were wrapping a perm on this rack right here. And I said, before we put this waving lotion on, it's so freaking cold in the salon and we're not using exothermic perm. Let's go outside in the back. It'll spare everybody the smell of the perm anyway. They don't want to smell it when I pop this bottle open. So we went outside in the back in the sun. I'm not saying you want that much direct heat, but it felt good to warm up a little bit. The hair was getting a little warmed up. I squirted a solution on there. We put the plastic bags on there. And after about 5 or 10 minutes of just doing that, we went back inside. But I thought, you know what? Let's get a little bit of warmth because it's so freaking cold in here, like a refrigerator. They had both airs cranking because, it's 95 degrees or hotter around here right now. So I thought we need it. We need to simulate some heat. Either we're putting it under a hood dryer after the plastic's on it or something. So we simulated some heat. We go back inside, and then to me, we skipped the wrapping. So let me do that real quick. So look what we did. This long a hair, you can't wrap the hair all around itself like you normally would. So watch how the hair comes off of here. You see, it is around one end. And there's no perm solution on here, but what happened was, I don't know. I guess I should go up so you guys can see.
Yeah, go up. So you're starting off from the one corner of the rod, and then you're going across. Bring it back down into the camera better, and then you're going across to the other side of the corner of the rod. So you're going all the way across to be able to keep all of that even on the rod.
I got it wrapped around this about twice and 2.5 times so it won't come undone. And then as I'm going around the rod, you see it's going up the rod, almost like if you were a fishing spool and that thing goes back and forth and the string goes back and forth on the spool. So now as I go around the rod like this all the way up to the top, I end up with hair on the end, kind of like this. And so then what will happen is those ends are only under a little bit of hair right here, and hair is distributed evenly across the rod. I take a little smaller sections, and I have to use 2 to 3 times as many perm rods. It takes a little more time, but I get more even distribution. Some people would call that a spiral type wrap back in the day, but it's just practical to me. Some people, as they were sitting here, would take little coffee stir straws and stick them under the bands.
Oh, just to keep them all together, yeah.
Well, it keeps the band off of the hair because the band can put a backwards crimp on the hair, kind of like when you're flat ironing hair. And
I forgot about that. That's right.
Right up at the top, if you bend that flat iron the wrong way and you get that crimp near the head and you got to not do that, that's what the band will do right there. So we'll usually put coffee stirrers that will cover like 3 or 4 rods at a time across here. It does stabilize and sturdy up the rods so that when you're rinsing, they kind of stay still and stay together better. But it also keeps that crimp off the hair. So that's the first thing, is wrapping up the rod on long hair will evenly distribute the hair.
Yeah, because that's what a lot of stylists, they'll just center the wrapping paper in the middle of the rod, and then they'll just start rolling it over and over and over on itself, and then they end up with one big bulky amount of hair, and the solution can't get through all of that. That's why the curl falls apart.
Right. And so that's why the ends don't get the chemicals it needs, or the rinsing it needs, or the neutralizer it needs, all the steps. And so we got to the rolling. So now we're going to put solution on it, and we're going to make sure we cover the whole rod on each one of them. Then I crisscross to make sure, put that plastic bag on. And then this is when I'm saying, you know what? How long does it take? I had my son read the directions to me just so he could learn the process. He's reading these directions. He says it says process it for 20 minutes. I said, yeah, you think everybody's hair is exactly the same across the world? He said, no. I said, well, then how can everybody process the exact amount of time? There's just no way that can happen. So what we did, and this was something that was kind of, a few hairdressers come around and looked, and they said, how are you doing a test curl? Well, when you start to uncurl it like this, I said, you've got to put your thumb on here because you got to hold it on there and then push towards there and see if the hair starts to bend. If the hair starts to pull that curl in, it's usually somewhere between 10 and 15 minutes on previously processed hair.
Is that what we used to refer to as the S pattern?
Yes, the S pattern. You're looking for an S pattern. And look, this hair has not been permed. It almost looks like it's getting a little bit of an S pattern there. And you got to kind of be careful. That is not the S pattern I'm looking for. It's not. And so I went down a little further just to kind of show them. And I was like, look, it's not curling yet. This was at 5 minutes. Then at 10 minutes. At 10 minutes, it looked like it was kind of trying to bend. So I said, you know what? I'm going to go a little bit longer. If 10 minutes might have been enough, maybe 11 or 12. Well, what's another 3 minutes after the 12 gonna? Yeah, right. So I went 15 minutes, and when we did this, boom, that curl, it pulled in. So when that curl pulled in at 15 minutes, I was like, done. This is where the damage starts. Another 5 minutes, and that's going to be more processing than this hair needs, and that's where the problems, the dryness, the damage. Sure, everything we do to hair is going to be somewhat damaging, but I got stuck to my table. But that's where we're going to do over processing. So now this is the trick on, this is the huge trick on hair that you have time. It's not on a person's head. Now we're going to rinse, and the box says 5 minutes. Of course, they set a timer. What's 5 minutes? Is 5 minutes for this long a hair or for this long a hair? So you have to rinse. And the neat thing about a perm is it bubbles up, it suds up a little bit. So when it stopped sudsing, I could tell we were closer. And you know what? It was interesting. It did actually stop sudsing at about 4.5 minutes. So I said, you know what? 5 minutes is pretty good. But you know what? We did that spiral type wrap on there. If those ends were under 6 more layers of hair, it might have been more like 7 or 8 minutes of rinsing to get it out of the very deepest part. And I mean, you're covering it up. It's almost like it's insulated in there. How is that waving solution actually going to get rinsed out from the very center of that? There's just no way it's getting rinsed out as well as the rest. So by spiraling up the rod, it's not all going to get perfectly rinsed out, but it'll be more evenly rinsed out. So we get it rinsed and rinsed and rinsed and rinsed. And then the thing that I was always known for that people would freak out on, even on a real client, it's going to take me about 20 minutes now to towel blot the hair to dry. So now I'm thinking the hair is soaking wet and somebody wants me to put neutralizer on there. What am I neutralizing? Water? No, I don't want to neutralize water. So I don't want it to be diluted again.
That's such an important observation, and that's such an important point to bring up, because everybody's in such a rush all the time. And they don't realize how important the neutralize. I think the neutralizer step is more important than the actual perm solution application.
And that's why people don't get the right perm rod size. Like you said, that you had to that you have to go a rod size smaller. I think people do that because they're not neutralizing well enough. You're gonna think I got a few more tricks to neutralizing, but first of all, I don't just towel blot right now. I use paper towels because paper towels absorb much more water, and we take one long towel, fold it in half, and it fits right over one row of rods, and we start pressing. And at first, even the top side of the towel gets really wet. But after you've done it 3 or 4 times and you look at the top side of the towel stops getting wet, but the bottom side is pulling a little moisture. I don't stop towel blotting until no moisture goes onto the paper towel. It's still damp, but the hair, I guess, is more porous than the paper towel at this point,
Yeah, right.
because I've got it so towel dried, and it takes a minute because you think you got it all dry, but if you wrapped it the old-fashioned way, you've got a whole bunch of moisture down in the inside. It is slowly. Look, I brought my dog to work today because he's supposed to go to the groomer. Come say hi. And
Look at
and this,
Casper. Now what perm rod did you use on Casper there?
I know he's got some curly hair, so he's getting impatient. Lay down, boy. Lay down and stay there and wait. So I brought him to work because I was bringing him to the groomer today, and the groomer called and said his sister called and said he had a migraine and could we reschedule for next week. So he just got a free rod to work today for, which he loves going to work with me. So anyway, that hair wrapped way deep inside the rod. You have to think, if I just dry the outside, the inside's still wet. It takes a minute for that water to travel back to the surface.
It has to evaporate, yeah.
Yeah, so I'll towel dry like on a real head. I'm towel drying here, then I'm towel drying here, then I'm paper towel drying here. I go back to here, back to here, back to here. So it's giving this a chance to equalize the porosity through all the hair, the water through the whole hair. I might even wait a minute or two, get a drink. If she's a smoker, say, go outside and smoke a cigarette. Let's give it a minute before we neutralize. This is where I take my time and then towel blot dry again. Make sure. So the drier this is, the more minute, whatever chemical is in that neutralizer that's locking in the snowflake bonds is going to lock them.
Sulfate.
No flake. Right. So it's going to lock those snowflake bonds in so much better if there's less water. It's more concentrated. So you know how some people will, now this is, okay, so let me talk about common practice here. People squirt their neutralizer on there now, right?
Yes.
Yes. And then they wait 5 or 10 minutes. Are you familiar with the two theories?
Well, wait, isn't that dependent on the perm that you're using?
Sort of, but some people think for a tighter perm, you process for 10 minutes, then rinse it out, and then take the rods out. Some people say for a little bit looser or more saturation of the neutralizer, because they wrap those ends so deep, they take the perm rods out at 5 minutes, but not rinse, and then put more solution on there and massage it through to make sure they didn't miss anything, and then rinse.
Okay.
But on extensions, hair replacement, a human hair wig, you leave the rods in, and you did the better wrap, and you did the better towel drying, and now you have two choices. You have two or three choices, actually. One is you don't have to neutralize at all. It can air neutralize over a week. You can just leave it alone. But I do a double step check just to be sure. I do neutralize, because I don't think neutralizer is nearly as damaging as the waving lotion. So I don't think it's a problem to go ahead and try to chemically neutralize right now for the 10 minutes. I do the full 10 minutes because I think that's what's locking it in. And then I rinse for the 10 or 15 minutes it takes to make sure I got that neutralizer out. And then we let it dry on the rack for 2 to 3 days. And that's the neutralizing that I like to do. If I can do it for 5 or 7 days, even better. There was a thing going around. God, this was before the internet. There was a thing like a journal that went around about how, I don't even remember if it was Pert or Prel, but one of those really aggressive shampoos. Don't use it. It'll change the structure of your hair. They had hairdressers perming hair with these aggressive drugstore bought shampoos back when. They'd put it on the hair and they'd say, look, if I wrap a perm and I put this shampoo on and then let it air neutralize for a week, they would show how the hair would actually be curly, because it's good or bad, it's changing the snowflake bonds of the hair. Casper, calm down. And so
I can't. I can't deal with you today. Can you say disulfide?
I don't know what you just said.
Disulfate.
So English, please. So so you've got to neutralize the hair really well. And I go ahead and I do both. And I've done this in hotel rooms when I'm traveling, and we've got a curly head model that needs hair. And I know that the class is on like Sunday, and I arrive on Friday or Saturday, and I'm doing some classes in some local salons. I've literally wrapped the perm in my hotel room using the bathtub to rinse, and then let it sit on my bathroom counter for a couple of days, air neutralizing, or in my suitcase along the way, and not take the perm rods out till the morning of the class or the model prep call, whatever. And when you take the rods out, it'll scare the crap out of you, because now it looks like a roller set, first of all.
Mm-hmm.
And I pulled, like, you see this very long hair here, the hair I sent you guys. I took the perm rods out, and I mean, it looked like it was still around a perm rod. I mean, it was really tight, like a little Shirley Temple curl right there. And I got to admit, for just a second, there was a little puckering going on with me.
Oh yeah, it always trips you out a little bit when you first see that thing.
No telling how curly or straight this hair is going to be, because I'm experienced. I have a good idea, but there's no guarantee that this hair is actually chemically curled or permed. It might just be wet set curly right now. So now we have to wet it. So actually, I set the hair in this studio right here, where it just had the air on over the weekend. Did this perm on like a Friday or Saturday. Waited till Monday or Tuesday morning. I come into work. Oh, we got to ship that hair out. Let's take it down, see what it looks like. Woo, it's really curly. I sure hope that when I wet it, it's not that curly, but I hope it's as curly as the perm rod. So I rinse it in just a little kitchen snack sink that we have in here. I rinse it. You don't want to shampoo or condition, because you do still have some air neutralizing that's going to go on. And that's why they say when you get the perm and we style it curly, and they say, don't wet it or shampoo it for 2 or 3 days.
For 2 or 3 days, yeah.
Yeah, somewhere between a few days and a week. The more days you can go, it's still air neutralizing. So that's part of what makes a perm lock in and stay curlier longer, is how much neutralizing is going on between the time you did the perm and then that first shampoo and conditioning. So what I did was I air neutralized here. I went in there, I wet it, and then I used a big wide tooth comb and took the tangles out. And when I took it was beautiful. I was so excited. I thought, God, that was a little scary. It was a little scary that it didn't actually, because when you first took the perm rods out when it was damp from a perm, well, it's still wet. So it looks.
Wait, you mean it wasn't beautifully curled like in the commercial? She comes out of the ocean and goes like this, and her hair just falls all beautiful and natural? Yeah. You actually had to do it? You actually had to style the hair?
Not when the hair's dry. When that hair is dry, it's tight.
Yeah. And that's the thing. So now, speaking of that, when you go to style hair after it's been permed, there is the temperature of the blow dryer.
That's a whole nother thing, but go ahead.
That's a whole nother. Well, okay. So then the quick tips: you got to stay medium to low heat. You can't start blasting the blow dryer at it. You'll actually pull some of that curl out.
Yeah, and I don't think
as round brushing goes.
I don't think. Yeah, true. There's a few things going on. I mean, heat is going to help change, but also when you say you can't go blasting, first thing I'm thinking is, and I know your wife's got very curly hair, so does mine. So we know curly hair clients, and it's not to me, the first thing is not as much the temperature, it's the blowing it all around.
I'm talking about the airflow. I'm not talking about the temperature of the heat itself so much as I'm talking about the airflow setting on the blow dryer. Everybody thinks... What's that?
That's what a diffuser is all about.
Diffusers are great.
And that's the whole point. A lot of people use a diffuser and then put the air on high volume air with the diffuser on, and it's kind of pointless. Sure, you might get more heat through, but you're going to melt your diffuser too, most likely, because the point of a diffuser is to not have that direct air. It's just to create a warm cloud around the tip of the blow dryer to dry the hair through evaporation and not as much through manipulation.
Yeah.
Put that on a t-shirt. So the air flowing around, blowing the hair around. So this is how I describe. I don't want to go deep into curling or styling curly hair, but this is kind of what I describe to a client. I'll say when I was going to, this hair's not as curly, so it's not going to work. But when hair's soaking wet, which to me, wet hair is especially curly. It's so sexy. I just love that wet curly look, you know. But then the total opposite of that, completely dried, brushed out with a brush, which you should not do, or comb with a fine tooth comb. Every single curly hair stands alone on the head, and it starts to look like a big cotton ball, big fuzz ball. Some people love that, but my guess is that the client is not going for soaking wet or big fuzzball. And so it's somewhere in the middle, right? It's somewhere in the middle, and that is totally opinion. So when you put gels, foams, mousses, pomades, what they do is they stick groups of hair together. They clump it together. So when it's real wet, it's probably like 200 or 300 strands grouped together. It's soaking wet, and you've got this curl that you can see with your eyeball, and you can see separation and contrast between the chunks of curly hair. And then when it starts to get drier, those clumpings get smaller and smaller and smaller. And you have to decide at what point do you like it. And that's why you're diffusing and slowly drying. The drier it gets, the bigger it gets, and the less defined it gets until you get to the point where you're like, I like that. And sometimes it can be more dry and less dry in different parts of the head. But overall, that's what we're trying to decide. How fuzzy, frizzy do we want it? Because I think that's the line that too many people cross, not understanding curly hairs. You just dry it so much, every hair stands alone, and it looks like cotton. This little cotton ball, you can't follow the fibers in the cotton.
That's usually what ends up on the magazine covers, you know, for those avant-garde, catch your attention things.
Yeah, right. So, because it's big, the fuzzier it is, the more space and air between the hairs, and so it gets bigger and bigger. Yeah. So that's kind of like what teasing is all about, too. And so that's why I'm saying sometimes some underneath layers you might want drier than the top so that you can get the fullness, but then over the top layer you can get the definition and the refined look. So there's ways to get more dry in certain places, less dry in other places for what you see, what you don't see, where you need volume, where you don't want volume. And then you can always fix it. Like, whoops, we went a little too far. Let's mist it a little.
Yep.
Start again. So my biggest takeaways are clean, dry, wait. Clean the hair really good. Lots of drying between chemical liquid processes. Add a little heat in there, and then just wait at the end for it to neutralize on its own. Those are the big takeaways for me. Anything for you?
I agree with you on your takeaways. And then the only other takeaway that I'll add onto yours is the timing. Is test curl constantly. There really is that sweet spot between, like you was mentioning, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. There really is that sweet spot. When that test curl hits, that's when you want to take it off. You leave it on longer, it's going to start melting. Well, not melting, but.
Oh, well, it does. It's the beginning of melting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you say that I've seen in hair school, I mean, I would like to call it melting, when they go to unwrap the perm rod off of a lady's head and the whole rod just falls off the head and the hair's still on the rod.
Well, that's a pocket curl. That's a special technique,
So I never did that, so I never really understood what happened.
I've had pocket curls. Oh, yeah.
I didn't know if the client's hair was already too damaged for it to happen. The perm was left in too long. I don't know, but chemically burn the hair right off the head, sores on the client's head. Scary stuff that can happen with perms. And I think that's why some people get a little scared of them. But if you follow all the steps, things should go right. I've never had one go wrong. So I just don't know. Guys, perm in the back is kind of coming back with the mullet coming back. Girls wanting to change their wave. Sure, perms are a little bigger curl than they used to be, a lot tighter. The thing that I noticed, a big trend, was curly hair used to be big here and out here, the bigger everywhere. And the trend just went where the curls are flatter here and they want the puff to be out here.
On the bottom more, yeah.
Yeah, a little more triangular, and the fluff was here. And so before we used to have them hang upside down, push the diffuser towards the head to dry, and that would add the volume here. So now we're just putting the diffuser in down here and towards the head and letting this fall flatter. So just a little different technique in this. You know what we didn't talk much about that we said we would? We kind of did touch on it, was chemically straightening hair also, or relaxers. And I don't know if we should just devote a whole thing to that, because we talked about perming, changing
Well,
the,
yeah, you were talking about straightening on the men's piece on the men's system. Because yeah, you know what? Let's do it next week then, because
because I would
then you
like,
got reverse perm you got to talk about, and straightening.
but the difference in the chemicals in a relaxer compared to a perm too.
And then I
Big,
can
big.
teach you how to pronounce disulfide bond and sulfate bond and hydrogen and all the other different names of the bonds properly.
Yeah, it'll be so much fun. Wow. Yeah, then I could sound smart at dinner parties.
All right, you know what? You started this week, so finish this week. I'm done. I'm not doing anything this week. You close
Bye.
this out.
Yeah, so I want to know, guys, in the comments, if you even like what we're doing. We're having fun doing this, but what? But I would like to
Nothing. I'm just
know.
making faces at you. I'm checked out. I'm done.
I would like to know in the comments any other topics you want to hear about. First of all, do you enjoy this? What are you getting out of it? Tell me specifically what you got out of Perms today. Did you learn anything? Did you enjoy watching it? And buy me a coffee, buy Eddie a coffee. It's just a way of supporting the channel financially if you decide you like what's going on here. We do totally do this for free. Yes, we end up selling some hair extensions, some classes from this. People want to learn from us. So we indirectly eventually do a class, and our companies make money at some point. But we do actually enjoy doing this, and it'd be nice if you guys at some point had shared this enough, financially supported us enough that this could be our full-time job, dude, just sharing our knowledge. Wouldn't that be great?
I'd be stuck being made fun of by you online for the world full time.
I think I hurt his feelings today.
Yeah, let's do it. No, I'm all for it. Let's do it. No, this
want me
is
to
fun.
end
We
this?
do enjoy doing this.
You
It
got
is
all the
fun.
computer controls. I'm done. It's over. So you just got to hit all the off buttons now. Goodbye, guys. Thanks for